There are a buttload of people who do public speaking for a living. How else would TEDx be as successful as it is? Sometimes these public speakers want to switch from advice about your financial, relationship, or career life to politics. The trouble is they typically don't know much about politics. For instance, a YouTube channel called Valuetainment has put out a video in which one of these public speaker types argues that there are 10 reasons to love capitalism. I thought it would be helpful to go through and address these reasons and see if they really should persuade anyone to see capitalism favorably.
You know, a lot of times people ask me a question, they say, Pal, what's your favorite product in the world? And the answer has always been the same. My favorite product in the world is people.
You know, if you're trying to make capitalism look good, maybe you shouldn't refer to people as products.
I can't get enough of people. I want to know your birthday. I want to know how you met your girl. I don't want to know how we met your boyfriend. I want to know about your parents. Who are you closer to, mom or dad? How was it growing up? Who were you in high school? I want to know. I'm curious because I love people. And so this leads me into a story I want to tell you. I remember being in India. We're in Mumbai. Mario and I are going. And the driver's taking us. We're in an Audi. And we're going in this road. And then we hit a light. And it's traffic. And this kid is by the window in the car. Driver says, don't open the window. Don't open the window. Why not? We go another block, he's following us. Another block, he's following us. Another light, he's following us. The kid is not stopping. I'm looking at this kid, he's maybe 6-year-old. I got a 6-year-old son. I think about myself at 6 years old in Iran. And I'm looking at this kid saying, my gosh, look at this kid. What does he want? He says he just wants food, but don't open the window. He's got foam next to his mouth. Why? He's on drugs. Don't touch him because something could happen with you. I said, this kid's guy, he says, you want me to feed him something? He says, yes, you got to eat something. We stop by McDonald's and he eats something there. And we go off. I ask myself, okay, what is the difference between this kid and me? Am I that special and smart? Am I that unique of a human being? Maybe he's got the same level of potential as me, maybe more. How come he's over there? Maybe because he grew up in slums. Maybe because he didn't have the same exact opportunities. What does this mean to you? We go to Argentina. Inflation 30%. Economy scary. Everybody in Argentina is telling me how scared they are. They don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. People are living together. 13 million people that could be working are not working. We go to Greece. The country's bankrupt. They're going through a mess. They want Europe to bail them out. They want America to bail them out. And they don't know how to handle their finances. And they think the solution is raising taxes. And these people are like, man, I want to start a business. And I watch these videos on YouTube. And I want to be somebody. And I tell myself, how can I give them the same opportunities I have in America? How can I give it to them? I'm in a system that's capitalism. I'm in America.
And we've hit the first pothole in the speaker's understanding of social science. Capitalism isn't whatever exists in America. Capitalism isn't bound geographically or politically. It never really has been, and since the 19th and 20th centuries, it has been a fully global social system.
It's capitalism. It breeds entrepreneurs. He's not in that system. So what do we do with that person right there? So you're watching this right now saying, Pat, what's your point? Whether you're young, old, older, whatever it is, you're in school, you're not in school. I want you to internalize what I'm about to talk about with you. Because there's two solutions you have. One is come to America. The other one is making sure you take every single spirit of capitalism and spread it to everybody in your country.
This looking at capitalism as a national system contained in the boundaries of a national geography and political system is the error of much of dominant political thinking, even that which has aimed to criticize capitalism. However, again, advances in social science have shown us that this assumption is simply not valid. Whatever poverty-stricken country the speaker is advising the less fortunate to escape is already capitalism. Every country exists within capitalism's bounds, so telling the less fortunate to spread capitalism in their countries is meaningless advice.
And the only way this thing changes is by the younger generation doing something about it. That means you. So today, I'm going to give you 10 different reasons why I love capitalism and why it can change your life. So first of all, before I get into telling you all these great things about capitalism, I want you to know that it is very naive to think that any system is perfect. I think a lot of times when people want to bash something, they're expecting 100% of people to do it right. For example, there's a lot of bad teachers in the world, a lot of bad parents, bad CEOs, bad bosses, bad journalists, bad bloggers, bad YouTube channels. There's a lot of anything that's bad that they abuse the power. They're also bad capitalists. But all of these guys give an opportunity for somebody who's a good parent, good CEO, good boss, good capitalist, good journalist to become a hero where somebody says, oh my gosh, look at the way this guy does it.
Yes, humans create the social systems in which they live. Humans are imperfect beings, therefore none of their social systems will ever be perfect. However, there is a difference between imperfection and a thing having fundamental flaws that it can't be modified to overcome. On the purely moralistic front, something may be so damaging that its costs outweigh its benefits. On the scientific front, all systems, social, biological, or physical, eventually reach the point where they can no longer revitalize themselves, fall into disrepair, and die.
I'm not here to be naive and tell you all the great things about capitalism, because I read all the negative stuff about capitalism. Here's an article. Top 10 reasons why capitalism sucks. People are unhappy, competition, destruction, adverse selection, externalities, monopolies, free riding, pointless cause, underconsumption, inhumanity, inequality, which, by the way, monopolies don't exist without the help of government. The only way a monopoly can happen is with the help of a government. This is where you see crony capitalism taking place.
That's sort of true, but there's no such thing as a completely competitive, non-monopolistic market either. Capitalist markets are full of, at least partial, monopolies. The need for governments or states to back up monopolies simply points to the fallacy of the idea of a capitalism with minimal or no government, argued for by neoliberal thinkers.
I'm simply talking about a system, on what a system does. So here's what I want you to be thinking about. Let's talk about some of the capitalists that they don't care about the environment. They don't care about what the world looks like. We're specifically talking about environment on point number one. Say they don't care. It's like, listen, I just want to make money, man. Forget about it. I don't care if the solar is going to be dirty. I don't care if the sky's got all this smog because our cars barely pass a smog test. I don't care about that. You know what? That's perfect. That's perfect because it opens up the opportunity for a young guy that's watching this saying, oh my gosh, you know what? What if we created cars that were driven by batteries, and I could put chargers all over the country, all over the world, and you just would go charge your battery for like 2 hours, and you go charge your battery for 20 minutes, and you go for another 20 minutes. What if I could do that? And that guy's name is Elon Musk. And then he becomes a hero, and he creates Tesla. And people who own Teslas, they swear by Teslas. People who own Teslas. I've never owned a Tesla before. Every friend that I have who owns a Tesla, it's like they're part of a cult because they feel good that they're making the world a cleaner place, right? Now, what am I saying about this? A capitalist that didn't care about the environment gave birth to Elon Musk. Let me give you a different perspective here. Environment. I want you to watch this commercial here. It's a 2-minute commercial. Mario, let's put the link below if somebody wants to watch the whole commercial, but I'm just going to give you 30 seconds of it and we're going to play a game. I want you to guess which company's commercial this is. Watch it and tell yourself, I think it's such and such company. Watch this commercial.
When we look across the globe, we have growing populations. This really puts a lot of pressure and an increased demand on water supplies. That's why we're intently focused on being good water stewards. We do that through a wide variety of projects. Most of them are around restoring and protecting watersheds or water resources. Maybe it's connecting floodplains to streams. They might be working with farmers or growers to implement better irrigation best management practices. It's a night and day difference between the before picture and the after picture.
We're really spreading new messages about what sustainability looks like, not just for today, but even 20 years from now.
For those of you that had never seen this commercial before, in your wildest dreams, did you think that was going to be a Coca-Cola commercial? Be honest. Be honest. Did you think that was going to be a Coca-Cola commercial? Now keep this in mind. Coca-Cola's gotten a lot of heat. Coca, right? A lot of heat over the years. In Iran, in the world, everywhere. A lot of heat. You know what they realize? They better change it up. They better start worrying about water. You know why? Because if all this water supply goes through, they're out of business. They better pay attention to the water supply in the world. They better pay attention to water being clean. They better invest billions of dollars of research to make sure water is going to be okay. Because without it, Coca-Cola doesn't exist. What does that tell you? Capitalism becomes a business that you have to pay attention to the environment, or else the capitalist running the business will be extinct.
That would be a very persuasive story to someone who doesn't know anything about the environmental crisis. Human-caused climate change has proliferated as the result of the industrial development that capitalism has carried out. This climate change is currently so severe that it's obvious to anyone paying attention that we are seeing more and more extreme weather events and the possibility of catastrophic climate change, which will destroy the parts of the ecosystem that we haven't yet destroyed and make Earth an intolerable environment for human beings, looms large over the political and social decisions of the next 20 years. Cultural shifts carried out by green movements have put the issue on the agenda, and even convinced some companies to use green products to tap into a consumer base. However, governments are extremely resistant to implementing climate-friendly policy because they are controlled around the world by fossil fuel industries that produce the crisis. These industries can't stop what they are doing because they are a major part of the world economy, and capitalism dictates continual expansion of this world economy on a finite planet. Many people are looking for ways to make capitalism green, but given the facts of the situation, I really don't see how this is at all possible.
Number two, here's the next great thing about capitalism. Your vote actually matters. You know, a lot of countries you live in or states you live in America, there are some states that whether you vote or not, it's going to be Republican or it's going to be Democrat. Your vote doesn't matter in a lot of different places. States like California or New York, your vote doesn't really matter a lot. Illinois, your vote doesn't really matter a lot, right? So a lot of people are like, does my vote really matter? When it comes to business, it does. Here's why. There is no place to go complain about a government official. Like, there's not a Yelp for government officials. There's not a Yelp for presidents. There's not a Yelp for DMVs. No DMV cares if you want to go out there and say bad things about them. Businesses, complete different story. People were unhappy with Uber. You know what happens? The following month, all the people that were using Uber, everybody went to who? Lyft, because that's how we vote. You're not happy with Starbucks, Coffee Bean. I am not happy with McDonald's, Burger King. I am not happy with a gym, Bally's. Used to be all over the place, gone. LA Fitness, 24-hour fitness. Your vote matters, and businesses know. And the reason that they know how much your vote matters, they have to treat you better. Because if they don't, you may be voting for somebody else very soon.
Separating supply and demand from cultural and political factors is simply a non-starter. Just as supply and demand influences the decisions of businesses, as do the political connections and cultural sway of businesses influence supply and demand.
Number three, you know, I'm always curious when the person that complains about a capitalism video I make about entrepreneurship, something like that about business, the person complains, capitalism's the worst system, and they're complaining on their iPhone or their smartphone on YouTube, all started by capitalists, which...
Good evening. You know, many conservatives say that socialists are hypocritical for using products of capitalism, like talking on smartphones, driving cars, or taking flights. Consider this, moist-faced gentleman.
The biggest thing that drives me crazy about people that bitch about capitalism these days is that they're oblivious to the fact that capitalism put them in the position to do so. They have everything that people used to strive for. Now they're on their iPhones bitching about capitalism. What? Yeah, and they're totally oblivious to the hypocrisy in this.
But of course, cars and phones are basic tools that everyone needs to live and participate in society. And that's the thing. Just because you want to change a society, you still have to live in the existing one. It's not like you're off the hook for having money just because you don't think you should have it to buy things.
Hi, I'd like to buy all this valuable merchandise, please.
Oh, certainly, sir. That'll be $4,000.
Oh, I don't really believe in that. Like money, I'm a socialist, so...
Oh, well, I guess if you don't believe in money, then sure, yeah, dude, take it all, fine.
Thank you.
See, usually they make you pay, right? And that's just it. You may want to dramatically change your society, and you should, but we have to live in the current one. I think we should have universal health care, but right now I'm not free to just roll into a clinic and demand drugs and scans and stuff without some insurance company's permission. You might not believe in having a speed limit, but I bet if you do 120 down your town's main drag, you'll get in trouble. I bet you will. So the point is, you have to change society to get important things, and until that happens, you have to live within the existing one. And this is obvious enough that people intuitively understand it, unless they're lazy and using it to bash the left. Like, I really doubt that conservatives would use it to mock, for example, Polish solidarity activists who were resisting Soviet communism in the 80s.
Is interesting. You make a big noise that you oppose perfect Russian communist system, yet you wear clothes from communism store.
You must give our people freedom.
And your shoes from communism store.
You're evading the issue.
And your food also from communism store.
Oh, you are the worst.
Obviously, no one is going to blame a Pole trying to resist Soviet imperialism for having to use products and eat food produced by a system they're opposed to. But this is exactly the dumb shit we're getting from conservatives who lose their mind when they see environmentalists using a plastic kayak or a socialist on a smartphone. Many of us are in favor of these products existing, but we want them produced under democratic control, without insane levels of human labor exploitation, and without destroying the biosphere that we count on every day to remain alive. It's also especially humiliating that right-wing buffoons say dumb chestnuts like, socialism could never invent the iPhone, since capitalism actually did not create the iPhone. All the technology embedded in a smartphone handset and cell network, along with the internet itself to make the phone useful, were all developed by the public sector, primarily the Pentagon and the university system. You'll learn more about it in the next video. Capitalism didn't make the iPhone, you imbecile.
By the way, this is a completely different perspective to give you for you to be thinking about. What does innovation do for you? Well, how many of you today watching this actually like what you do for a living? How many of you love your jobs? Do you love what you do? By the way, would you replace doing what you do right now versus, I don't know, being a farmer? Would you want to be a farmer? Would you want to work on a farm? Let me explain to you what the conditions of a farmer is. Mosquito bites all day, right? Spiders. You're working with dirt, you're sweating, sun, maybe rain, you gotta work, you gotta go through it, and you gotta be working 12-hour days. It's a lot of manual labor. Would you want to be a farmer? Would you want to be a farmer? Would you? If you said no, for some of you that are watching saying, Pat, I don't get the point here. Does Pat want us to go back to being farmers and working in agriculture? Here's what I'm saying to you. In America during colonial times, 90% of all workers in America worked in agriculture. Everybody was a farmer. Everybody. You would have been a farmer today. By the way, in 1900s, 41% were farmers. In 1900, in America, 41% of all of us, we'd be doing agriculture. I wouldn't be running an insurance company right now or doing vitamin videos. I'd be on a farm. I'm a pretty big guy. I can probably pick up a lot of strawberries, right? I can probably go on working pretty hard. I'd be a farmer. You'd be a farmer. Dirt, all this stuff, right? Outside being around it. But you're not a farmer today. Today, only 2% of people in America are farmers. We went from 90% to 41% to 2% today. Are you glad? Are you glad? Are you glad that there's not a farmers today? What happened there? What happened there? That's called innovation. The capitalists said, we can figure out a better way of doing this. Let's get to work. And because of capitalists, they figured out ways to do it better. They figured out ways to make it more efficient. And that gave you the opportunity to have a different kind of a job where you can work behind a desk or whatever it is that you do out there. And you don't have to be outside 12 hours a day working hard because of a capitalist figuring out a way to add advancement and innovation that gave you the opportunity to do what you do today rather than being a farmer.
No. During the long 16th century, capitalism was primarily agrarian, i.e. mostly agricultural rather than industrial and urban. During this time, a second serfdom emerged in places such as Latin America and Eastern Europe as a way to force peasants to produce cash crops for the state that would then go to the world market, a setup which would continue into the early 20th century. Does this guy really think that agricultural capitalism has never been a thing?
Number 4, here's another thing that capitalism did. Capitalism took us, for the longest time, wherever you live, all over the world. Most things that we did, we were forced to do. It was forced to do a lot of things. And capitalism brought the spirit of choices. You don't have to do this, you have a choice. You don't have to work here, it's a choice, right? You don't have to do anything, it's a choice. Let me give you an example. For many years in America, everybody, if you were a certain age and if America needed soldiers, you were forced to go into the army or the military. It was called a draft. And people hated it. Many of the younger generation is not going to know about it. When I was in the U.S. Army, I went by choice. A lot of people would tell me stories who were older that it used to be by force. You were drafted, and people would, I'm flat-footed. I'm the only child. I have health issues. My blood type is this. I don't see very well. People would make up all these different excuses to avoid being drafted, right? Do you know why the draft went away in America? Why do we not have a draft in America today? Well, a Nobel
No,
Prize
no, no,
winner
not
named
Milton
Milton
Friedman,
Friedman,
Vietnam
who,
War.
if you
No,
haven't
no,
watched
no,
any of his
Vietnam-
videos, just go
Vietnam
on
War,
Google, type
Vietnam
in
War,
Milton Friedman
no,
and watch
no,
every one
no,
of his debates.
no,
He's
Vietnam War.
fascinating, right?
It was no, shut up. It's
He
the Vietnam
said,
War.
if
Dude,
America is about
dude,
capitalism
it's the
and
Vietnam War.
capitalism is about
Dude,
choices,
dude,
we should make
please,
the same with
dude,
military
dude,
and get
it
away
was
with
the
draft.
Vietnam
Why?
War.
Because
America
if you
lost
get
the
people who
Vietnam
join the
War,
army
dude.
by choice,
No,
you have better soldiers. Then you get people who you force to go to war. Why not let people choose to serve their country where it matters to them, then force them to go in? It's like making somebody do something they hate. The spirit of capitalism got away with the spirit of force. And that's why there's no longer draft in America.
Yeah, the reason the U.S. no longer has a draft is because it lost the Vietnam War, which led to U.S. military strength and its ability to mobilize U.S. citizens for war to be considerably reduced. The Vietnam War was all about the geopolitical forces of 20th century capitalist society. Coercion has always been part of capitalism, going back to the enclosure movements at the beginning of the system's existence in England and Spain.
5. So you know how you hear this entire thing about redistribution of wealth? Oh my God, you know, socialism sucks because you got to redistribute wealth. Here's why it sucks. It sucks because it forces you to redistribute your wealth. Unlike capitalism. Let me explain. Bezos was recently interviewed and they asked him, they said, hey, how do you feel about the fact that you're worth $160 billion? He says, I don't feel bad about it because the company's worth $1 trillion and I'm worth 160. That means I have redistributed wealth to other people and made them $840 billion. Let me say this one more time. A company, Amazon, goes from 0 to $1 trillion. He is worth 160. He gave 84% of the company to other people. Redistribute by choice and effort, and result, $840 billion of wealth is spread amongst other people that brought value or invested into Amazon. Now that is my kind of redistribution of wealth because it's by choice, not by force.
Let your Google food do the job of bringing you up to speed on the extremely important labor issues that Amazon has been embroiled in, which this guy totally should have known about before he used Amazon as an example. I want to interrogate this issue of force for a second. Most socialists have historically thought that socialism could only be brought about by insurrection against the capitalist order. However, they didn't think of this as straitjacketing society into a new political regime where otherwise a society was peaceful and full of folksy voluntary exchanges of goods. The reason socialists emphasized insurrection was because the state has always existed as the coercive institution that entrenched inequality, including the inequality between capital and labor. Capitalism redistributes wealth in the most forceful ways possible through the hierarchical system of states, which has produced the gulf between what is called the third and first worlds. I'm cutting out 6 and 7 because they're repeats of 3 and 4.
Number 8. So I got a question for you. How long would you like to live? Honestly, how long would you like to live? What's your number? Like in your mind, what do you say? You think, I'm going to live 80 years, you know? I'd love to live 100 years. What is that age? What do you think about? How long would you like to live? And by the way, why are you not even thinking about the fact that maybe you only have 2 or 3 years left to live? What do you mean, Pat? Let me tell you what I mean by this. 1900, the average life expectancy of a citizen of the world, somebody in the world, average. You know how old the age was? 31. 1900. That's not a long time ago. That's just 120 years ago, was 31. Think about that right there. By the way, 1950, 48. You know what it is today? World. This is not America. World. Today, 72 years old. We went from 31 to 72 years old. You mean to tell me in 120 years, my life expectancy increased by 41 years? Are you serious? Yes. So the question becomes this: why? Why? Why are we living longer? Is it because global warming makes us live longer? Is it because all of a sudden the trees are better trees? Or is the oxygen we breathe better? Is the water that much better? No, it's called advancement and capitalism. Medicine gets better, we live longer. Ken Langone, one of the founders of Home Depot, wrote a book that said, I Love Capitalism. He's 82, 83 years old. His father, I believe, died in his early 60s. You know what he said? He said, my dad died in his early 60s at a young age. You know why? Because back then we didn't have blood thinners. Ken has been on blood thinners for a while. Because he's on blood thinners, he hasn't had a heart attack. He's 83 years old. He's still living. Still, he's on the new. But if you look at him, you tell yourself, this man's probably going to go for another 20 years. Why? Advancement. So the reason why you and I are living longer today is because somebody who is a capitalist used their capital to advance medicine, which is why you and I live longer today.
This use of statistics is really deceptive because the presenter is using the global average life expectancy. If you actually want to know if capitalism has accompanied and thus possibly caused material improvements in people's lives, you have to look at a lot of those at the very bottom of the social ladder. This is because improvements for the middle and elite strata without improvements for the lowest strata only shows that the system, capitalism, has continued to concentrate its wealth at the top and keep the mass of people in the same relatively poor condition they were before. Quite the opposite of improvement overall. The sociologist and economic historian Emanuel Wallerstein, in his works Historical Capitalism and Capitalist Civilization, by looking at factors such as diet and access to new technologies such as refrigerators, has shown that, in fact, the lot of the least well-off has stayed the same, and if anything, capitalism has preserved, maybe even worsened, the lives of the mass of humanity.
Number 9. You know, if you speak to any parent and you tell them, listen, what do you want your kid to do when they grow up? Most parents will say, I just want my kid to be happy. I want him to be happy. I want her to be happy. Matter of fact, don't you want to be happy? Are you happy? Are you happy doing what you're doing today? You may say, yes, I am happy. But happy to you may be different than happy it is to me. Maybe happy to you is working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, taking Friday afternoon off to golf, and you have Saturdays and Sundays off because that's what happy means to you. Happy to me, that's miserable to me, right? I may say happy to me is running and gunning, working 80 hours a week, building something that's never been done before, spreading a message that's going to change the entire world. That's happy to me. Somebody may say, Pat, you're absolutely miserable. Who wants to work as hard as you do? Somebody else may say, happy to me is working for a nonprofit. You have no idea how happy I am. We go and we contribute to different areas. Every time there's a crisis all over the world, I go and I contribute. The other day there was a flood. I was in Puerto Rico. I went to Panama City. I went and contributed when the earthquake happened. That's happy to me. I only make 32 grand a year, but I'm happy. Here's the point. There isn't only one kind of happy. Everybody has a different kind of happy. The problem is sometimes everybody's imposing their happiness on you. Like, for you to be happy like me, you have to be doing exactly what I'm doing for you to be happy. That's not true. There's different types of happiness, right? I'll give you an example. I had a friend here who's the #1 backgammon player in the world, Victor Ashkenazi. Okay, he originally was born and raised in Russia, lived there for 20-some years under communistic nation, went to St. Petersburg, came to America, went to NYU. After NYU, worked at SunGard, then goes to Goldman Sachs for 11 years. Today, he's a grandmaster backgammon player, the best one in the world. Today, and we start talking, and one of the things that came up was a story about a lady who would pick out my outfits at Nordstrom's, and I would go buy it from her, right? And she was a person that was from Russia, and she left Russia because she had a son, and she didn't think her son had the same opportunity in Russia as she would in America, but she missed one thing about communism. I said, what is it? She would say, Pat, I miss the fact that after work, everybody would get home at 4 or 5 o'clock, and we would just play cards. We would play games. We'd have drinks. We'd laugh. We'd play music. Nobody worked. There was no competition. It was like everybody was just hanging out. There was none of this ego stuff. We were just together. It was so amazing to me, right? Now watch this. I said, that's amazing. Very good point, by the way. That is an element of happy to most people. Me and you included. We love our family, right? But the question we got to ask is the following. What different types of happy can coexist in communism, in socialism, in capitalism? What do you mean, Pat? Watch this. Elon Musk, what is happy to him? Happy to Elon Musk is starting a business on the moon, right? If you think about how Elon Musk is wired. Do you think Elon Musk in a communistic nation would be happy? Do you think Elon Musk in a socialistic nation like Greece would be happy? Where all this regulations there? I don't know if he would be happy. Now watch this other person in America. The person in America who works for a nonprofit organization. Do you think she or he can coexist in communism that they're giving back? Probably she can coexist there. Do you think the person that's an executive here, they don't want to be an Elon Musk, but they want to work 60 hours a week and they want to make $500,000 a year income, live in a good community. They don't want to be celebrities. They're low-key people, but they want to make $500,000. Can that person coexist in Russia or in Greece? They can't coexist in those places. See, what capitalism allows to do is It allows multiple different types of happiness to coexist. Because Elon Musk can live in America, that nonprofit person can, the one that wants to be an executive can, and the person that just wants to work 9 to 5 and get Friday afternoons off can coexist in capitalism. This is why capitalism system allows all kinds of happy to just mesh and live together.
This is another nice bedtime story for neoliberal economists that has nothing to do with reality. In the real historical social system called capitalism, there is something called a division of labor. Capitalism has to make possible the extraction of the surplus produced by laborers above what they need to live to be sold as a mass of commodities. Thus, a rigorously defined set of roles and rewards is worked out for all laborers and entrepreneurs, which assigns some of them the better roles and rewards, and the rest the worst roles and rewards. This is what produces global poverty, dead-end jobs, poor working conditions, inequality, and even social ills such as sexism and racism. The division of labor makes the proposition that capitalism facilitates pursuit of happiness writ large completely preposterous.
Number 10, I want you to think about that relative that you have that judges you all the time. Every time you do something, they judge you. I can't believe you just did this. Look what you're doing. How dare you do that? Shame on you. Shame on you. How do we feel when somebody judges us all the time, right? We can't stand it. You don't like it. I can't. Nobody likes it, right? You know what's a great thing about capitalism? You know what's one of the great things about capitalism? It forgives you. It's very forgiving. And by the way, it's got a memory, like very quickly, capitalism gets over your old mistakes. What do I mean by this? See, you see a lot of people at the top that they make it, but you only see their final product. You don't see what mistakes they made. If I had to make my list is a very, very long list. Matter of fact, I even made a video about it called 12 Mistakes I Made as an Entrepreneur. What's the point here? You screwed up. You built a business, didn't work out. You made a bad decision financially. You lost everything. You can go work another job, save your money, 3 years later, start a business and come back up. And by the way, you can fail once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. The only thing anybody matters, the only thing anybody cares about is your last victory. Because you win one time, everybody forgets all the past mistakes you made. That's why capitalism is forgiven. So you're watching this right now saying, oh my God, I just failed last year. I made a big mistake 2 years ago. Capitalism forgives you.
Kondratiev worked out that capitalism has 2 phases, A and B. A is capitalism's ascent and B is capitalism's terminal decline. One follows the other because the accumulation as a result of the development of novel production processes exhausts the resources from which this development is drawn, and thus the accumulation cycle has nowhere to go but down. Capitalism doesn't forget the mistakes of capitalists so much as it remembers their success and pays them back for it with ruin. If you enjoyed, definitely hit the subscription, like, and bell notification buttons. If you really enjoyed and you would be interested in a book I'm writing about communist regimes from a libertarian communist perspective, you can support my work monetarily by becoming a member on my Patreon, as well as making a one-time donation through my PayPal. You can also check out my blog where I write articles and my Twitter. All links in the description.
This is not good.